My name is Chuck Weldon. I'm a trustee for Plainfield Township. I know the cemetery pretty well. I worked in it when I was 13 years old and a lifelong resident of Plainfield Township. So I know a lot of these people and some of the history of this township. So let's follow me around and we'll see what we can come up with. Dexter Hamilton, he was the first fire chief in Plainfield Township and was the instigator of getting the volunteer fire department started. And then let's walk over this way and another one of the people that did a lot in Plainfield Township and development of especially the movement, youth around here in the Northview School District. Well, he's known as Hap Woodworth, but his real name is Earl. But he owned the Woodworth Dairy on Woodworth Drive, and he was township's trustee for many years, and then he became a Kent County Road Commissioner. But he's done a lot for Plainfield Township over the years, an old timer. You notice a lot of veterans flags in here. There's a lot of veterans that don't have a marker, no flags on them, but some of them end up getting missed. This here's Charlie Wilkins. He was in the Battle of the Bulge in World War II and carried home still a lot of shrapnel on him. And he was one of the first volunteer firemen that Dex Hamilton had. And there's Robert Bellamy. Bob Bellamy is probably one of the better known people around Belmont and Plainfield Township. One of the first ones in the fire department also. He bought his own fire truck. At that time, it was Mr. Huntsberger was a supervisor at that time, and he didn't want a fire department. And Bob and Dex and Charlie got together and they bought this fire truck. Well, Bob bought it, but anyway, one day somebody called the township and complained that they were using the township fire truck to water his garden. Well, it was Bob's fire truck. The township did not own a fire truck. Agnes and Albert Packer. That's where Packer Drive is named after them. And down, you go across the bridge, around the corner, there's a big house there with a stone front on it, glass front all the way across the front. Used to be a chicken dinner place years and years ago. There's still a lot of history. If somebody wanted to make a history book of this township, they come across a lot of it. Here's Mr. Hummel. Hummel is the owner of a mill on Chauncey Drive. It was run all by water power. He still has some regulation in the township. We come up on this one marker now that it almost makes you have a tear in your eye. It tells about a guy that gave his life to save his friend. You can't make out a lot of the epitaphs on it, but it tells about him giving his life to save his friend down at the bottom here. And he must have been a ball player because there's two baseball bats and a baseball there. So he must have been some kind of a baseball player of some sort in his time. Over here's Katie. William and Katie, they were all lived on Arslitz over here off in West River Road. And they were all barbers in Comstock Park for many, many years. And you can see that marker right over there. It says Ammerman on it. Ammerman was a big farmer in the northeast corner of Plainfield Township, and his house is still standing on 10 Mile Road. There's some of the Civil War veterans in here yet. And these markers here like this is made of zinc. And they used to have the plates on them would be removable, and you could put the different epitaphs or anything you wanted in it. Some of the Clarks owned the property where Grand Island Golf Course was. Years ago, before Booth, Pete Court bought that property, and it was called Belmont Dairy at that time. After that, D.A. Booth from the Booth Dairy bought it, and it ended up being a Grand Island Golf Course. And Grand Island Golf Course is now part of Plainfield Township Park System, and the rest belongs to a gravel company. But them two markers one was William Jones, And William Jones started the first mail route out of Belmont, which they still use today. Did that with a horse and buggy, but they didn't go every day. They'd have every other day delivery. Lots of veterans in here. Civil War veterans, some World War I veterans. I was told there was one up here where I got a little flag by it. They said I was told once that was a fellow it was in the War of 1812. Well, that was a border war. That was a border war against Mexico and Canada to keep people from coming into the United States. Old sandstone markers and the wind and the rain sort of was taking a toll on them, that they just deteriorated from weather. Conrad House, he was one of the, in 1908, he was one of the founders of the Belmont Baptist Church in 1908, but he passed away in 09. We're coming up on a real unusual marker here. Livingston, this was known as Livingston Cemetery years ago, and we have Silas Livingston was one of the original signers of the Bill of Rights. Over here you got Livingston. James Monroe was killed by a Battle of Falling Waters, Maryland, July 14, 1863. And Charles was killed by a falling timber when he was building the YMCA. And they were the first white couple married in Plainfield Township. And that was 1838 was the township, but 1837 was the territory. All right, Bert McCauley and his wife are buried in here, or in this mausoleum, and it's been there for a long time. But he run that roadhouse, and that's an actual picture you see right there of that roadhouse with the old Model T sitting in front of it. Bellows and Smith, I don't know too much about them. I know that there are still Bellows that live in Plainfield Township. They were all died at a fairly young age. Over here we have Babka, and I think this guy he came here from Bohemia, but he fought in about every war you could think of. He was probably like a professional soldier, or a soldier of fortune, whatever you want to call it. So that man came to this country, and it's just like he fought in every war for democracy that there was. So there's so many good citizens in here. It's what's made our country as it is today. There used to be another mausoleum. The health department made it get tore down because the two people in it, you could walk in there and see them under a glass. It was in there. And so the health department made it take it down. But so they're taken out there and buried. That's been many, many years ago, because I can remember as a kid coming over here on my bicycle and looking in there. Enough to scare me, so I don't go back home. But right here is England. Fossil, George Fossil. Still today, he had a blacksmith shop across the street from the town hall. And there's still, if you go to Lyndhurst and Belmont, there's still part of his house still standing. It's been added on to and remodeled. That still stands there. So he was one of the old originators of Belmont. That's one thing I was going to tell you about. There was two little towns, villages, whatever, Plainfield, and then there was Auschwitz, and then Belmont had a rail line go through it. So pretty soon them places sort of went by the wayside, and Belmont was it because it had the rail side. But I was told there's a lot, if you look at some of these old markers, it'll say from Civil War that they enlisted in Auschwitz or in Plainfield. Well, a lot of them were from out of state. They came on a rail up here because they heard that Michigan When you got on to be discharged from the Union Army, you got 40 acres and a mule. When they come out of Tennessee and Indiana and them states, they didn't get that on there. So that was one of the benefits of being enlisted in the Union Army in the state of Michigan. Holland, Goldner, one of the, I forget which one it was, but one of Goldner was an FBI man for many years. I don't know if that was him. Obetz was one of the leaders of the bank in Rockford for many years, the president of the bank. Richardson School was on Grand River, was called Richardson after DeWitt Richardson. And today that's the Plainfield Township Senior Center. There now. Nelson Richardson, he was an insurance agent on Coit Avenue for many years. The whole family over decades have been buried here. Foster owns a piece of property that I'm living on now that my great-great-granddad was a Union soldier, and I live on 6 acres that of the 40 he got as a discharge from the Union Army. He got that after my great-great-granddad had it. Dan Booth and Ricky were on the farm on West River Road, which is now part of the gravel pit. Richard Booth, he was a school teacher at Comstock Park High School many years ago, and he had a business, but I forget just what that business was, but he was one time a trustee for Plainfield Township, but then he went on and became state representative for 73rd District like Pete McGregor is today. Kleineberg's a well-known person. The building right across from the fire barn used to be the Kleineberg Well Drilling Company, and of course they're all passed away now and there's no Kleineberg Well Drilling, but they were around for many, many years. Court, this is Daniel Court. He was a postmaster in Belmont, and he used to get the mail off the train when the train went through. This is relation to him, to that court over there. They brought him over from the Netherlands. George Roland Hagen, his son Eugene, and George and Gary were all house builders, carpenters. And they all built very nice homes, real expensive homes they built. That house there, Orrin House, was a mail carrier out of Belmont for many years, and his house still stands. It's right north of the Baptist church is where he used to live. Visser, Cy, and Roger, and one of them got killed in a war. All is Ralph Visser. He was well known. He was worked for the sheriff's department, I believe. That's about all these Vissers were. All lived on the other side of the road and owned a lot of property. Art and Helen Graham, they run a youth center for many years in Belmont. Down there were what is now the Linsan Buddhist Temple. It's a shame that the township or the Rockford School District didn't give that to Plainfield Township because it would have made a nice museum. But that's the way it goes. So, and that's about it.